Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This time I'm doing something just a little bit different than usual. This week I was listening to a video about Brett Cooper talking about therapy, and she said, is it a crutch, a cure, or something in between? Now, as I was driving and listening to it, something really caught my attention. Now this will be a react to her reacting to someone else talking about therapy. And in this case, it was Matt Walsh, who believes, yes, he does say therapy is beneficial to an extent and to a degree, but he also believes, at least in America, that it's not as beneficial. Now, Brett Cooper gave her 2 cents on this. Now I want to give mine on hers. Just a disclaimer, I've got nothing against Brett Cooper. I do enjoy some of her videos. There are a few things which I agree with and a few things I disagree with, and I just want to highlight some of them and share them with you.
But I am somebody who directly benefited from it, and I don't think I've ever talked about this at length and why I sort of don't recommend it in this modern age.
Now she begins by saying she did therapy when she was just a little bit younger, and she did benefit from it for about 3 years, but eventually she moved on.
And so I'm very, very grateful for the support that I had. I think I was somebody who was like the perfect candidate for therapy because I was so bottled up. I had never really been taught how to deal with my emotions because my family is definitely a family that's like, shove it all down. Don't just move on. We just got to get through. And I had all of this stuff happening and I had no idea how to process it.
I know she talks very fast. Okay, something very important there for most people. I think not everyone, 100% of people, especially when they grow up, they don't know how to deal with their emotions. Why? Because we were never taught. The school is definitely not going to teach you that. Your parents, maybe if you are fortunate, but otherwise you will just be a young human being lost in this world, trying to find their way, trying to navigate their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And sometimes that we lose control. But luckily, in her case, she was aware of that, and because of certain situations in her life, she decided and thought it was a good idea to go and see a therapist, and it did help her for quite a few years. So we're still agreeing up to this point.
My senior year, I decided that I thought I had had enough. I didn't really see it benefiting me anymore, and I walked away. Even though I loved my therapist, I liked going every week, but it had gotten way too comfortable, and I decided, you know what, I think I'm done. And that was totally fine.
I do agree. That was totally fine. See your therapist until the both of you come to understanding and agreement that you have solved the main problem. The main challenge, the main obstacle. It's completely fine to move on when you feel you're not growing anymore. Number one, it's fine to move on when you have overcome the main obstacle. Number two, it's also fine to move on if you feel like you are not benefiting anymore in regards to growing as a human being. You feel like your therapist isn't giving you any more tools to grow.
One of the biggest advocates against going to therapy and seeking treatment, and somebody who just really questions the mental health community a lot, is actually my coworker, Matt Walsh. I'm sure you guys have seen his tweets. We're going to talk about some of them today. And he said, I'm not saying that all therapy is a waste of time, but I am saying that many of the worst and most dysfunctional people I have ever met have been going to therapy for years, and there is no indication that it's done them any actual good whatsoever.
One thing to remember, the world is a very big place. There are many countries, different cultures, perspectives. So at this point, I'm sure he is specifically referring to people from America, people in America seeing American therapists. So very specifically in this context. Most people he has come across who have seen a therapist have never really benefited at all. Now that's incredibly sad. That should not reflect on this industry as a whole, but rather on very specific therapists, and maybe they are just held up to a very poor standard. And that is what should be addressed. Are therapists bad? No. Is therapy bad? No. Are there some bad therapists out there? Absolutely.
The very fact that so many people need to be in therapy for years is a pretty good indication that a lot of therapy is bullshit. If it's helping, then you shouldn't need to keep going back forever.
Right. Now, this is where I strongly disagree. Number one, overcome the obstacle. That can take 4 weeks, that can take 4 months. It shouldn't take 4 years. If it takes that long to overcome a certain obstacle, maybe you should try a different therapist, because a different therapist will have a different approach, a different perspective. And therapy is all about different perspectives. The second thing is, if you are able to overcome your obstacles, if you are now free from any emotional or mental struggles, now you can begin the process of growing. And it can be absolutely incredible if you can continue that process with the guidance of your therapist. Your therapist is supposed to be a mental professional. They are there to give you different tools to navigate your mind, navigate your perspective and perception of life. They are there to help you dig just a little bit deeper within yourself. And as human beings, we want to grow and strive to become the best version of ourselves. Now, you can absolutely do that on your own, by all means.
And that is the main point. Therapy should be a launching pad. I always looked at therapy as I am going through a very dysfunctional, very difficult time in my life. My 15-year-old brain literally cannot comprehend what I am going through. I don't understand what's going on in my dad's brain. I don't understand what's going on in my brother's brain. And I need somebody to explain it to me and give me the tools to coexist with them.
Yes, therapy can absolutely be that launch pad to get you out of that very dark hole you are in. Therapy can be a great thing to lift you out of that very dark hole, to show you there's a sky, there's rainbows, there's colors. The therapist is there to give you a different perspective and help you understand your emotions and your mental state and what you are going through. Once you can label it and to a degree and extent understand what you're going through, then maybe you can just find a moment of peace and clarity so that you can calm down, so that you can calm your thoughts in order to just have a brief moment of seeing of what's going on. Compare this to a pond. The wind is blowing or you're throwing a few rocks in the pond, the water will just ripple. You cannot see what's going on. That's, to a degree, that is your emotional state. That's your mental state. You're freaking out and you cannot see yourself. You can't see what's going on. But if you can have a different perspective, a different perception, just a little bit of clarity where your mind and your emotional state is just a little bit calmer, you can see your own reflection. And in this context and analogy, you can just see what the struggle is, what the problem is. And then you can begin the therapeutic process of healing.
And that was it. I learned the tools and I moved on. It was a very specific time in my life. You should not need to go to therapy for your entire life or even years and years on end. But a good therapist gives you skills and tools to handle the hardship in your life. You take that, you apply it, you see how it works, and you move on.
Now, it's fine to only see a therapist to overcome your struggles. Do you need to see a therapist forever? Absolutely not. No, it's fine. If you overcame that obstacle, you can part ways. You need to. No. Do you want to? Can you? Absolutely. If you feel like it can benefit you, which it can, go for it. It will depend on the therapist. It will depend on you. It will depend on where you want to go in your life. And it will depend on the therapist. Are they willing to go on this further journey with you where you actually grow? If not, you can find a different therapist. But then that will also take time to build that relationship all over again.
Chloe Cole, she is a detransitioner. She is so smart and great and just a lovely person. She responded to Matt and said, I don't think it's helpful if you just stay with the same therapist with no end in sight. I believe that goals need to be set at the beginning of the process, and if they aren't met in a reasonable time frame, that you need to move on.
Absolutely. You need to set goals with your therapist. Where are you going? It isn't just a matter of fact, hi, how are you today? How are you feeling? What are you struggling with? You can't do this every session. Sure, you can feel a little bit better after a session like that. Let's say that continues for 3 months. That's 12 sessions. Every time you're feeling just a little bit better, but it still feels like you're not getting anywhere. That's why goals are so important. That's why it's very important when you enter your therapist's office for the first time. It's very important that they ask you, why are you here? Why did you decide to come and see me today? Whatever you say, they need to write that down somewhere, circle it. This is more than likely the main goal. Sure, you can break it down a little bit and get a little bit deeper, but that will be what we are working with for the next few sessions, next few weeks, next few months.
There is no money in curing anything. Money is in treating the disease. It's the medical industrial complex, guys. It's just like Big Pharma. They want you to come back. Like a good moral therapist that actually cares about helping you and fixing your problem will send you on your way.
Yes and no on this one. It will depend on where you are in the world and which country you are and who your therapists are and what their morals and beliefs are. But this is where you, as a client who is emotionally quite vulnerable, need to be aware of this. Make sure your therapist is not exploiting you. You don't want your therapist to just affirm what you are feeling. You want your therapist to tell you that it's going to be okay, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to be difficult. It's fine if your friends tell you the good things, but if you're paying someone, you want them and hopefully expect them to tell you the things you don't want to hear, but need to hear. That's how you're going to grow. It's going to be very difficult, but that is what you need. That is the very bad medicine you need to swallow. But hopefully you can grow from that. And that is the most important thing. Alright guys, that is it for this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.